in the chapter glorifying and explaining Srimati Radharani, Kaviraj Goswami says that these topics are confidential, should not be spoken openly, but if they're not spoken, then who will know? So I will reveal the essence in such a way that the devotees will be satisfied and pleased, and the non-devotees who have qualities like those of a camel will totally miss the whole nectar. And this is wonderful. So with that disclaimer, he sings, Devi Krishna Mai Prokta Radhika Pada Devata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva Kanti Sanmohini Para. The transcendental goddess, Srimati Radharani, is a direct feminine counterpart of Lord Shri Krishna. She is the central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive Shri Krishna. She is the primeval internal potency of the Lord, the manifestation of his Ladini Shakti, the personification of his love, and the embodiment of his grace and compassion, which is our only hope of approach to him. As a prerequisite for approaching such a sacred topic that we hold reverentially high above our heads, so as not to pollute the nectar with sahaja tendencies. In preparation, as prerequisite for understanding the appearance of the Lord's Ladini Shakti, he has three major potencies. Sandini, existence. What's existence without cognizance, samvit? And what's the use of cognizance without ananda, ladini, bliss? She took birth at noon today, along with Vishaka Devi. And for over 5,000 years now, we have been celebrating her 14th birthday. As Krishna is Navayovana, she assumes the perfect form to complement. So before contemplating, considering the appearance of the Lord's Ladini Shakti, it's helpful to understand the nature of love. Now, that word has been severely cheapened since the 1960s, when it was adopted for commercial purposes. If you go back to the roots of Western philosophy, the Greek, Western morality originates with the Hebrews and law with the Romans. So if you go back to translate from the English to the German, to the Aramaic, to the Greek. Greek language is very suitable for philosophy because it has enough definitions for any word to cover all the possibilities. So for love, it begins with eros, but then it progresses, philippe, brotherly love, and ultimately agape, love of God, the root of love for all souls, and compassion for his children, the jivas. So agape in the Greek, love of God, means complete, selfless, sacrificial giving of oneself for the pleasure of the beloved. As a result of sacrificing false ego on the altar of the holy name. And the characteristic of love is a progressive, endless relationship that never terminates despite so many reasons to do so. Superficial reasons to do so. So, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada comments that if you really want to understand the meaning of love, then you have to read Prem Vivarta by Jagadananda Pandit, who is Satyabhama from Dwarka Lila and Srimati Radharani from Krishna Lila, expanded into Queen of Dwarka and then male form for Gaur Lila. So Jagadananda Pandit in his Prem Vivart, which very wonderfully does exactly what Srila Prabhupada said, helps you understand the nature of pure, true, eternal love. We won't get too much into that topic today, but just to cite one reference. He says, everyone is talking love, love, love. And yet, unless they understand the nature of Krishna's relationship with the Vrijavasis, they'll never know what the term actually means. Before receiving Srila Prabhupada's books, and we only had the Western scriptures, which are a little mixed, but have some sections of actual revelation. One of the finest descriptions in the West of the nature of love was given by the Apostle Paul. And just a little background information, because he's speaking with such humility. And yet his background was something very different. He hailed from the tribe of Benjamin, most prestigious. He was a Pharisee, high priest, member of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Court, Roman citizen. And yet he got it all wrong. Until the day he was literally knocked off his high horse, blinded by an intense effulgence, and asked, his former name was Saul, means big, Paul means small. So he was addressed by Jesus, who had already left this world. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Meaning his disciples. And then the voice informed him, you can be cured of your blindness if you continue on your campaign to your destination in Damascus, where he was headed for the sole purpose of persecuting Christians, and visit those Christians and ask if they will heal your blindness. Which he did, which was initially a little intimidating to the Christian congregation, seeing Paul approaching them. But then they saw he's completely different. He's so humble. And in his humility, he gave a beautiful description of the nature of love. And he's revealing his heart based on his life's experience. So everything he's saying as a qualification before he establishes without love, it's meaningless. Every qualification he's listing, he had to near perfection. So he said, I may speak in language like angels and devas, but if I have not love, it's all impotent. It's no better than a crashing gong or a clanging cymbal. Just noise, just disturbance. I may possess such prophetic powers as to understand and predict all the mysteries and intricacies of the universe. But without love, I don't know anything. I may give all that I have in charity, culminating in delivering my body to be burned, which was his imminent experience. But without love, I haven't given anything. I may have such faith as to declare to this mountain, be cast into the sea, and it goes. But without love, I'm still impotent. Love is patient and kind, understanding, gentle, never arrogant or rude, demanding its own way, instead delighting in God's way. Love bears all things, endures all things, hopes all things, and assures all things, and is, at the end of the day, the only thing we really need. But Srila Prabhupada qualified loving devotional service so that we don't take love to be some passive energy. It's an active dynamic who took birth at noon today, along with her almost identical Vishaka. Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna is Anandamaya. He's infused with Ananda. He has it. He knows it. But he can't taste it. Because the taste comes in relationship. And therefore that Ladini Shakti, dormant not only in him and all of us, inherent in every soul, requires loving relationship and reciprocation to taste. So Srila Prabhupada explains that, and he gave the analogy, I may speak in the middle of the night in an empty room and it won't be very pleasing. But now it's pleasing because of all of you and the reciprocation. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita explain different types of perfection in siddhas, which, like every Sanskrit word, can be translated in so many ways. But siddhi, in one sense, Srila Prabhupada explained, means the perfection, means to know Krishna. Now we can know him in his Brahman feature, Paramatma feature, Bhagavan feature. But if we don't know his internal affairs, we don't really know Krishna in full, in truth. Tattva, as he says in Gita. So Srila Prabhupada explains that this is a quote from a Radhashtami lecture, our business is Srimati Radharani, who is so very dear to Krishna that she recommends to him, this devotee is very nice. Even though I may be a rascal, if she recommends, Krishna has to accept. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada explained, Brijabasis greet one another, Jai Radhe.
Jai Radhe.
And he would greet them in return, Hare Krishna. And then he gives like a little commentary right within his lecture. Brijabasis are more interested in worshipping Srimati Radharani because if she is pleased, then by her grace we can understand to some extent Krishna. And the perfection of the search for Krishna is the mood of separation personified by the 6 Goswamis, searching for Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, which also means within our hearts. And that service begins with the tongue, chanting the holy names. For which purpose Radha and Krishna came back as Lord Gauranga, who was introduced in a sense during Krishna's Leela when Gopinath, desiring to reveal the glories of his own holy name, assumed the form of the Golden Avatar on one special night at Imlital, which is a Chintamani, which is a Kalpavriksha in Chintamani Dham, in the guise of a tamarind tree. Lord Krishna, by the influence of that tree, would sometimes turn golden. Lord Gauranga would sometimes go to that same tree and reciprocation turn shyam. So one night, inspired to reveal the treasure of Vrindavan, the love of Vrindavan, the bright moonlight enhanced Srimati Radharani's waxing desire to meet with Krishna. So her servants and maids dressed her because it's Purnim, full moon, very luminous in Vrindavan. So, accordingly, her Sakis and Manjaris dressed her in a swan white sari, decorated only with pearls and white sandalwood paste. And with a white cloth, they muted her ankle bells and escorted her to merge into the brilliant moonlight where she was indistinguishable. Conversely, back in Nandagram, as Mother Jashoda is lulling Gopal into sleep by singing lullabies combined from Ram Leela and his own pastimes from the day before. And she watches as his lotus eyes drift closed, and he falls very peaceful, and his breathing is deep, and by all appearance, he has just embraced the goddess of sleep. So Mother Jashoda, just wanting to make sure, she backs out of the room, watching to make sure his eyes don't open, as she very softly closes the door and very gently walks away. At which point Gopal jumps out of bed, dresses very quickly, stuffs a flute in his belt, jumps out the window, and while Radha is being very intentional to stay only in the moonlight and avoid all shadows where he would be detected, Radha had to stay in the moonlight and avoid the shadows. So Krishna took the backside of the town where there's plenty of shadows, so he made it to Imlital before her. But she was more careful in her journey, so it took her longer. So Krishna arrived first in the Kunj at Imlital, knowing that she would meet him there. And he considered, upon who can I meditate? It'd have to be somebody more qualified than myself. Well, that narrows it down to one person. So as the fire of separation was blazing in his heart, he started seeing and hearing things, not that they weren't there, but they became very exclusive. The leaves falling from the tree to the floor of the kunj was like amplified to sound like her footsteps. And he kept, because now Gopal's in the kunj with eyes closed, meditating on Sri Radhe, and every time he hears the leaves fall, he opens his eyes. He goes outside to look, is that her footsteps as she's coming? But every time it was false alarm. It was just leaves falling from the trees. But in his intense separation, he's hearing her, he's feeling her, he's sensing her. He is seeing her in her form as Brajrupa, which means, it's the name of Radha, meaning that aspects of her character are visible in all the natural phenomena of Braj. So as he gazed out from the kunj, watching to see, is she coming, the curving course of Jamuna and the crisscross waves on her surface became Radha's braids. The lotus flowers floating on Jamuna became the decorations in her tresses. The luster of the full moon shimmering on the waves of Jamuna became the sheen of her hair. And he became so absorbed in meeting his beloved that the love within his heart, vibrating on his lips, assumed the name of his beloved, and he began chanting in the sweetest voice, Radhe, 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 Radhe. And while chanting that name, he entered into deep meditation, contemplation. How sweet is her name, there's no comparison. How exalted is her name, there's no equal. How blissful is her name, he could not fathom, except by chanting and hearing more and more her holy name, awakening her emotions within his heart as an external indication of which was that his Shyam Varna, dark complexion, became golden. And it wasn't simply an external manifestation, it was an indication of the internal state of his heart. And with the golden complexion came a new mood upon Govinda, and he became absorbed in the thought that he was Radha, awaiting the arrival of Krishna. Now, even in Braj, where wonders abound, this was an opportunity not to be missed. So the birds and the deer and the animals gathered around the entrance to the kunj, attracted by the sound of Radha's holy name, uttered in the sweetest melody. And as they're gathering around, looking through the curtain made of vines to the kunj, at this golden form of Krishna within, chanting Radhe Radhe. At this opportune moment, Radha arrived. And she saw the congregation outside the kunj, and she wondered, what is this? And she was surprised that the whole kunj had a golden luster. The whole area emanating from within the kunj. So she was perplexed. That's not Shyam's complexion. The animals made way, invited her to the curtain, and she followed like a daughter of the wind. But when she looked in, she saw Krishna's not here. Some golden deva, probably awaiting his sylvan goddess. Krishna probably saw him here, and then just let him have the kunj, and he probably went to Yoga Peep. So she turned toward Yoga Peep, and then she heard her name chanted in that unmistakable voice that always resonates within her heart, calling Radhe, 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 Radhe. She turned, looked back into the kunj, and by the sound of his voice, she could understand that's Krishna, who somehow assumed a golden form. So she entered very cautiously. And hearing her footsteps crossing the kunj, Krishna thought, that's her. Then he opened his eyes. But the thing is, his golden form indicated a new identity. At this moment, he was so deeply immersed in the mood of Radha that he thought he was Radha. So when he opened his eyes and saw her before him, and he addressed her, "Who are you?" Most unusual. And she thought it wise not to answer. She simply smiled so graciously and tilted her head a little bit. And he asked, "Are you Radha?" She didn't answer. Then he wondered, "Am I Krishna? Who are you? And who am I?" And he started, "Yeah, I do have a form, and it's golden, and it's male." And then she sat down beside him and wiped her love-clouded eyes and asked him so sweetly, "What happened to your monsoon complexion?" At that point, his Shyamvarna, his dark complexion, he's still golden. But that golden aura began to diminish. The sapphire luster resumed. And with the dark complexion, his identity returned, and he remembered, "I'm Krishna, waiting for Radha, who has now come." And she asked him, "Here in Braj, everything is intentional. There must be deep significance to the golden form I just beheld. Can you please explain that?" And all the birds and deer and animals are still very attentively gathered around the door, watching and listening. And Krishna explained that in the upcoming age, Kali Yuga, I immersed in your heart's mood, will assume a matching complexion. To display your love and compassion as I distribute Braja Prem. And then Radha, hearing about the upcoming golden avatar, could only say, how wonderful. Krishna continued to taste the sweetness, glory, and joy of your love, and to distribute that prem, I will assume your emotions, your luster, your love. And then she asked him, by what means can you understand my bhav and the feelings of my heart, which is very confidential? And Krishna responded, by the empowerment granted by your holy name. I'm able to experience all the diverse moods of your love, by which I can understand now all the devotees, both within Braj and from without, whose love is simply a manifestation of the spark of your Ladini Shakti within their hearts. So, back to the question, how will you understand the nature of my heart? Krishna explained, I will plunder the contents of your heart. This is like what Chaitanya Charitamrita says about the Panchatattva, who, when the storehouse of love of God was brought by Krishna and remained locked and sealed, Panchatattva opened the lock and seal, plundered the contents, and were amazed in a wonderful way to see that the more they distributed, the more the initial contents increased. So Krishna's just giving an introduction to the upcoming glorious Kali Yuga. Not that every Kali Yuga is glorious. Only one out of 1,000. The next opportunity will come in a mere 8,640,000,000 years. So better not waste your time. So was she pleased to hear her glories being propounded by the Golden Avatar? No, because she's left-wing. She was enraged that a thief who in his childhood was obsessed with stealing yogurt, in his youth stole the gopi's clothes, is now going to steal her heart. Not that she would deprive him, but she was wondering, if you steal the contents of my heart, which is pure love, how will I serve you properly? But we all know that whatever we offer to Krishna, we receive back much more. So many pastimes and experiences testify to that truth. But she was in a contrary mood, which pleases Krishna. And she scorched him with her glance, which kindled a lover's quarrel, not like they go in this world. Because in that lovers, and Krishna was adamant, he wasn't going to surrender to her that night. Because he was thinking Kali Yuga has enough challenges of its own without her contrariness. I know some people like that. And within the lover's quarrel, such varieties of witty arguments, false innuendos, and hidden symbolism introduced the confidential truths of the Golden Avatar, who would appear to do what even Krishna was unable to do. Naparyayam, I'm not able to repay you for your super excellent love. That was Krishna's conclusion to Rasa Leela. But how can that be? Krishna's a gentleman. He's not one to fail to reciprocate, to liquidate his debts, that was accomplished through Gaur Lila. The debt Krishna was unable to pay was liquidated, not only in full, in overflowing abundance, by the golden avatar in distributing Radha's love. So in reciprocation for Krishna searching the depths of his heart for a word, a hymn, a mantra to convey his love, the only thing that came to him was her holy name. In loving reciprocation, when Radha, searching the depths of her heart for the means to convey her love, nothing comes to her but Krishna's holy name. As those two holy names joined as Hare Krishna to become the first couplet, complemented by 7 additional others, because Radha and Krishna are Astapriya, they like the number 8. So the 7 additional couplets joined the initial, expanding into 8, whereby the Mahamantra was born, and later adopted by Lord Gauranga as the anthem for his movement, due to its ability, its potency to awaken our dormant love and attract us to the path of pure devotional service. And faith in that Mahamantra was what Srila Prabhupada, and the way he emphasized it with such humility, writing in his diary, I have no love, nor devotion. And yet I do have implicit faith in the holy name, which will resound to every town and village of the world, because that was Lord Gauranga and my Guru's mission. Krishna's internal potency is always by his side, and yet when Krishna appeared to leave Vrindavan, she could not endure his absence. So it became a full-time occupation of Lalita and Vishaka, who were always at her side, to try to supply her with some glimmer of hope. And the usual pattern was that she would become so overwhelmed with the grief of separation from Krishna, she would fall unconscious. Lalita Vishaka would be in a dilemma. If we revive her, she'll remember her misery. If we leave her unconscious, she'll at least have temporary reprieve. And they tried, by all means, to give her hope until they were forced to admit defeat at the hand of fate. When Sri Radha saw the cows, and she thought, Krishna will be with the cows. She just totally forgot that Krishna's already left Vrindavan. She ran to the cows, and she saw that they were dejected. Eyes were downcast. Teardrops flowing down their cheeks. And it spoke very clearly of the truth. And then Radha, in a very fiery mood, she cursed Kamsa and fell unconscious again. Lalita Vishaka moved her into the shade of a tree. And then Vishaka saw the sun. She's the daughter of the sun. She saw the sun pulsating with rays of hope. And she thought, what is this? Just then, Radha came back to consciousness, And she saw in Jamuna, in a cluster of blue lotuses, the face of Gopal, teasing and inviting her. Come, beckoning, enter Jamuna. She ran into Jamuna, to her waist, to her neck, totally submerged. Vishaka went with her, and they never came out again. Seeing the departure of her dearmost friends, Lalita ran into the water to give up her life, to follow in their footsteps. And Vrinda, who will be a narrator today, stopped her and said, "You cannot give up your life. You've just lost Radha and Vishaka. If you give up your life, who will sustain the Vrijabasis?" And Lalita was angry at Vrinda. So she said what people sometimes do. She said yes, yes, and did the exact opposite. She didn't go tell the Vrijabasis what happened. She ascended to a peak on Govardhan Hill, which at the time was very high. And as she looked downward upon the villages and pastures far beneath in the valley, she saw an eagle flying through the sky far below. She thought, I will join them. Chanting Radhe Shyam, she plunged from the top of the cliff to give up her life. Now it just so happened that Jambavan, who had a residence both in Govardhan and Vindhya, was flying back and forth. He saw this beautiful girl descending from the sky, caught her, took her to his cave, raised her as a daughter named Jambavati. And while all this trauma is piling one on top of another, from the void, from the sky, a very reassuring voice resounded that in the future you will all enjoy a festival of unending bliss. And even Vrindadevi was perplexed. What does that mean? And even Krishna was oblivious to the details of his unfolding destiny, because when after the Astasakis disappeared, the other 16,000 gopis were praying for Krishna to deliver them. And who came? Bhomashura, kidnapped them, held them in his cave. Krishna's son kidnapped the gopis, held them in his cave until they became princesses. And by wonderful means, the 8 main gopis started appearing in and around Dwarka. Now you know that when Radha was born, at the same time as Chandravali, as the daughter of Vindhya Parvat, and during the samskara for childbirth, Putana swooped down, because that was Kamsa's order. Kill all the baby boys, kidnap all the baby girls. So in the middle of the samskara, Putana sweeps down, grabs baby Radha and Chandravali, rises into the sky. Vindhya Parvat was furious, and he told the Brahmanas chant mantras to kill her, which they did. And Putana started feeling fatigue. She dropped Chandravali, who fell into a river which flowed into the Vidarbha province, where she was adopted by King Bhishmaka, and went by the name Rukmini. So Putana is clinging to the other one, Radha, but when she passed over Braj, she becomes so exhausted she dropped her into Jamuna, where she was adopted by Mukara. And Purnimasi told Mukara she will be the the daughter of your son-in-law. Take good care of her. Anyway, because of these different arrangements, Rukmini, born to King Bhishmaka, and he had a condition that when she married Krishna, Krishna could not marry any other girl without her consent. So, so Surya, who is Bhanu, who is Vrishabhanu, appeared in Dwarka in the home of Satyajit. And after that whole controversy with the Shamataka jewel, he felt so bad that he gave Shamataka jewel, as well as his daughter, to Krishna. So Satyabhama, with her mother, Radha, arrives at Rukmini's palace when Krishna was away. Now, you know, in Rukmini's palace, Krishna is served with such submissive affection. And yet, was his mind happy? No. Because his most fundamental need is Brajaras, for which in Dwarka, Vishvakarma fashioned Nava Vrindavan, means New Vrindavan, with all the pastime places of Braj, and dioramas of Krishna's associates. But it didn't get off to a good start, because when Krishna first visited and he saw the diorama, Mother Jashoda, and he ran and embraced her, he was shocked. Why are you so hard and cold? And he realized this is diorama. So he didn't come back until Satyabhama arrived at Rukmini's palace, which really changed the dynamics in Dwarka. So Rukmini felt such affection for Satyabhama. Now this is interesting to me because it was obvious that she was going to be her major competitor for Krishna's affection, due to her beauty and character. And yet she felt such affection for her, thinking she's... Because Rukmini, in the mood of Chandravali, was thinking, this Satyabhama is like my sister Radha. She felt such affection for her, even though obviously she would be a potential competitor for Krishna's attention. And then she felt such empathy, because clearly Satyabhama was not happy. So Rukmini asked her, why is that? Satyabhama said, I was brought here abruptly by my father, without warning, and this creates a very awkward situation for me. So Rukmini, in great empathy, told her, don't worry, I will personally place you in the king's hands. Now at this time, Satyabhama didn't know that Krishna was the king of Dwarka. So when Rukmini said, I'll place you in the king's hands, she recoiled and said, please, my sister, grant me a place where I'll never have to see a man or hear a man's name. And Rukmini looked at Vida in amazement. Our whole dilemma is already resolved. So she called for Nava Vrinda, who is here today as a narrator. And she told Satyabhama, there's a forest where I feel you will find happiness. And Nava Vrinda is the guardian. And as Rukmini is describing the nature of Nava Vrindavan, which is not different from Braj, Satyabhama is wondering, how does my sister know so perfectly the levels of Vrindavan? So she told her, go there with Nava Vrinda and be happy. So they went. And Nava Vrinda gave Satyabhama her own kunj to take rest, and she said, I'll take you on parikrama and show you the holy places shortly. But yet Nava Vrinda was seeing that even in Nava Vrindavan, Satyabhama is unhappy. And it troubled her so deeply. She asked my sister, what can I do to bring you happiness? At first Satyabhama was at a loss for words, but then a beautiful smile played upon her face because she remembered. In the house of my father, Narada Muni gave me this beautiful sapphire deity, curved in 3 places, wearing yellow cloth, and crown made of peacock feathers. And Nava Vrinda said, we have such a deity here in Nava Vrindavan. And this was the first glimmer of hope. Satyabhama was enlivened. Nava Vrinda led her to the kunj where that deity resided. And and she ran to embrace the deity. But she was shocked. What happened to you? Is this the effects of the Kaustubha jewel that you become like stone and cold and hard? Then she realized this, she was so enchanted by the beauty of the deity, she thought this was Krishna, and then she realized this is a deity. But that's okay. She understood that by resuming the kind of deity service she did as a young girl, she would find reciprocation from Krishna. So as a gift from the palace, Rukmini had given Satyabhama a beautiful yellow embroidered cloth. Satyabhama made that into a dhoti for Krishna. She made him a garland. She decorated him with flowers, but she thought, I need those Karnikara flowers. So she went with Nava Vrinda to pick them, to come back and complete decorating the deity. Coincidentally, at this very time, Madhu Mangal was so at wit's end trying to solace Krishna that he took him to Nava Vrindavan. And he's describing the glories of Nava Vrindavan. And Krishna asked, where is she? I said, because he thought that the descriptions of Nava Vrindavan was glorifying Radha. So he asked, where is she? And he said, I wasn't glorifying Radha. Glorifying Nava Vrindavan, where we are. Look, here's Jamuna. There's Govardhan. Let's go play. So Madhu Mangal is trying to cheer up Krishna. And he's leading him on the path towards Govardhan. And they passed the kunj where the deity had just been dressed by Satyabhama. And Krishna irresistibly looked into that kunj. And he was attracted to his own self. And he asked Madhu Mangal, is this a deity of me? And Madhu Mangal looked. And because the deity was dressed like Krishna in Vrindavan, Madhu Mangal completely forgot Dwarkadish at his side, and he ran to embrace the deity. But then he was appalled. Oh, you're so hard and cold, you must be a deity. And then Krishna is admiring the way the deity was dressed and decorated. Obviously, with great love and devotion. So he told Madhu Mangal, let's play a trick and find out who's serving this deity. So really fast, because time was limited, Krishna, with Madhu Mangal's help, changed clothes with the deity. And they exchanged all their ornaments. And then Krishna and Madhu Mangal carried the deity off the altar, hid him in the woods, ran back. Krishna jumped on the altar and put his hands to his flute to see who his new pujari was. So as he's standing there, and then Madhu Mangal is so excited, he was running around in circles, and Krishna, don't be so rowdy. This is going to be a very serious, romantic experience. And Madhu controlled himself. And then Satyabhama returns with Nava. And when they enter the Kunj, Krishna could not keep his eyes forward. He spontaneously cast a sidelong glance towards Satyabhama. And she saw it. And she said, this deity is coming to life. And they saw that wherever they moved in the Kunj, his eyes were upon them. And Nava said, he's never done this before. So then, approaching him with the Karnakara flowers she had picked to complete the decoration, when she touched Krishna, he began to tremble. Tears began to flow from his eyes. With the corner of her sari, she wiped the tears from his eyes, but her touch was too much. He began to sway, and he had to grab the tree behind him. And she said, first his eyes move, then he cries, then he grabs the tree, and then she asked the deity, oh Krishna, are you happy now? And he said, oh, because he was thinking that this girl Vishwakarma has outdone himself now. He's making dioramas that are animated. So Krishna addressed her, oh illusory Radha, at this moment your Krishna is most happy because he's basking in the luster of your love. And then she turned to Nava. First his eyes move, then he cries, then he grabs the tree, and now he speaks. He's alive! And she fainted. And then Nava with Bakula, well, we better take her back to her kunj and revive her. So they take her out, and then Krishna hears peacocks squawking, which means that Rukmini is coming with her maidservants. So Krishna told Madhu Mangal, quick, put the deity back on the altar and change clothes with him. So they ran into the woods, brought the deity up, placed him on the altar, and Krishna had just finished changing clothes with the deity when Rukmini enters. And she sees Madhu Mangal and Krishna just finishing their struggle to put the deity back on the altar and dress him the way that he had previously been. Rukmini walks in. What are you doing? And why are you in such an exceptional state of bliss? My dear husband, have you found a new lover? And he said, don't you mean an old lover? So what do you mean? I mean, Nava Vrindavan, my eternal love. So, and then Rukmini she asked Krishna, well, who made you that garland? Of course it was Satyabhama. But he said, Madhu Mangal made that. Madhu said, yes, I made that garland. Rukmini said, very nice. Now that beautiful yellow dhoti, embroidered so artistically, is this Madhu Mangal's artistic expertise? And Madhu Mangal protruded his chest and was just about to brag, and Krishna intervened. He said, no, it was the goddess. What goddess? The goddess of the forest. She gave me this dhoti. Mahamantra, yes, it was the goddess. At this point, Rukmini can no longer control her feelings. And she did what she never did before. She just blurted out, "Oh, Krishna!" And then she checked herself. I mean, my noble husband. And then Krishna responded that, having once flooded me with the nectar of Krishna Nam, why do you deprive me by the address with reverence, my dear husband? And then Rukmini told Krishna, you might as well continue your pastime with your old lover. I'm going back to the forest. I'm leaving. She turned around and stormed off. And Krishna turned to Mahamantra and said, this is a great calamity. The queen is angry. And Mahamantra said, she didn't seem angry to me. He said, but that's the social front she put on. But behind her veil of smile and words, her hot breath reveals her heart. I will have to go now to console her. So even Nava was amazed that Nava Vrindavan only really blossomed when Satyabhama entered, because she's Radha of Vrindavan. Come as Satyabhama to serve as Krishna's queen. Who came back as Jagadananda Pandit to write Prema Vivart, so we can understand what true love is. And in that book, he tells the story we all know from Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's that drama about the scented sandalwood oil. But there's a little additional wording in Prem Vivart. After Mahaprabhu said, he's trying to console me. About that scented sandalwood? The way you brought me? I didn't bring you any scent. And then he took it out and he threw it on the ground. Now, a pot full of scented sandalwood oil before days when these things were produced by machines and transported they were very expensive. But since Mahaprabhu wouldn't accept, he said, no, sannyasi is not supposed to smell like a perfume factory, but Jagadananda Pandit couldn't understand any of that because he's Satyabhama. So after he threw down the pot, which we know from, he said, I never brought you any oil, he smashed it on the ground and the words she done, he was thinking. Jagadananda Pandit continues writing in his diary. I fasted, locked inside my room, until he came to the window and tried to console me, which didn't work until he said, I'm hungry. Jagai, he called, Jagai, I'm hungry. At that point, Jagadananda Pandit jumps out of bed, takes bath, prepares his sumptuous feast. And when he's serving Lord Gauranga, who's relishing every item, Mahaprabhu commented, Jagai, your cooking is always super excellent. And when you cook in an angry mood, it has a special flavor that gives me an appetite. And Jagadananda Pandit said, hearing that just incensed me all the more. But I controlled myself and didn't say anything because I remembered he's the Lord. And I'm a servant. And Lord Gauranga is thinking, this is true love. Though these topics are pleasing to the mind, soothing to heart, and invigorating to the soul, we should always keep them high above our heads and maintain a spirit of awe and reverence, even after the beauty, sweetness, and charm of Vrindavan activates Raganuga Bhakti. The truth is, we are insignificant jivas, infinitesimal sparks of Krishna, Therefore, how much love and devotion can we even offer to Krishna? And how much of his grace can we assimilate in return? It's all insignificant, infinitesimal. And yet, if we connect to the source, the essence of Hladini Shakti, our insignificant devotion is combined with her infinite prem to give worthy pleasure to Krishna. And in reciprocation, his inconceivable beauty, sweetness, and charm can actually be assimilated within our hearts as Vrindavan begins to blossom within. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said emphatically, I emphatically say unto you, O brothers, you will obtain your good fortune from the Lord Sri Krishna only when Srimati becomes pleased with you. He implored us, try to reach Krishna through Srimati Radharani. Then only will our attempts be successful. And he said, don't even offer a flower to Krishna. Place it in Srimati's hands. And he taught us how to pray. O Jagannatha, O Universal Mother, kindly take this flower and offer it to Krishna. And then she says, oh, you have brought the flower for Krishna? He likes flowers. He says, Patram Pushpam Balam Tayam. And then by the touch of his pleasure potency, that flower infused with prem is pleasing to Krishna. And Krishna is delighted, and our prayers are answered because she prays to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada continued his description how we should pray to her. So Jagadmata, please offer this flower to Krishna, which is symbolic of love, flower. And tell about me to your Krishna. And then he repeated, Srila Prabhupada, your Krishna. Because there's many different features of Krishna. But where is he complete? Where is he whole? Where is he happy? Only with Radha. Tell about me to your Krishna. Because Krishna is yours. Unquote. And Srila Prabhupada continues, Krishna is not independent. So today is that auspicious day, the appearance of his Hladini Shakti, the original Bhakti Devi. Srila Prabhupada said, because she's a mother, we don't fast past noon because we don't want her to have to think that we're hungry. So Srila Prabhupada concluded his lecture on Radhashtami. Worship Srimati Radharani very nicely and be happy. Jai Shri Radhe.
His Holiness Varsana Swami ki.